Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 36 Cancel, and this is Coco the Weiss Cat. So it's mid-June, and summer officially starts in a few days, so I guess it's time for my spring update. So let's talk about some stuff that's happened in the Weiss Schwarz world between March and June. Now, we don't have a ton in terms of announcements yet, so first I'll talk about the dates for upcoming sets, and then we'll transition into news and events. We'll also recap bushiroad's online Springfest, which I got to participate in and scrub out after 4 rounds, not to bury the lead or anything. But there's still a lot to cover and some interesting developments in Weiss Schwarz, so let's get started. First, let's talk about the sets that have come out this spring, and there's an obvious first on the agenda. In March, one of the most influential sets ever to come out in English hit the scene. Date A Live hit the ground with all the force of a meteor from space, and it's been a huge portion of the scene ever since. This is in no small part the set's obnoxiously good finisher, Terrible Spirit Kurumi, which by my count was the most played card in this recent Springfest Online, hosted by Bushiroad, which I'll be recapping later in the video. That said, the set sports a vast amount of amazing cards that just make you wonder why anyone thought this was okay, and I've heard from reliable sources that Bushiroad is currently in copyright negotiations with both Fujimi and Wizards of the Coast to change the game's name to Date A Live Schwarz Enjoy 10 rounds of Mirror Matches the Gathering. However, next month in April, Bushiroad released the Magia Record TV set, giving Madoka a total of 4 sets to draw from. Now, unfortunately, with the mobile game ending service in the West 6 months before its Weiss set was released, and also being that Madoka is a bit of an old title already, the set was received without much fanfare. What also failed to land was Bushiroad's decision not to include actual signature stamps on these SPs, instead opting for stamped SPs with phrases and icons hot stamped instead of an actual signature. This is a move that Bushiroad has elected to make for other future releases, and I'll talk more about that later as well. Now, all that said, Madoka and Magia Record, now as one all-encompassing set, is by no means bad or underpowered. The large pool of cards now offers some decent level 1 combos and strong level 3 options with new additions in Magia Record, including cards that synergize with some of the older diamonds among the original Madoka sets. You can build a variety of decks, and each one has the potential to be quite decent, and if you're looking to build a new deck to try out, the set's pretty cheap at the moment, and you can create some pretty cool budget decks. Moving on, May came, and with it, Bofuri I Don't Want to Get Hurt So I'll Max Out My Defense was released in English. The set proved quite popular and was generally recognized as a good contender for the upcoming meta. Bofuri offers a myriad of strong options to make a competitive deck, as I've outlined in my set discussion video. If you're at all curious about this unique and powerful set, check out that link in the description. Anyway, now that we've covered the current releases, let's look to the future. Very soon this June, Kaguya-sama Love is War is coming to English Weiss. This much-anticipated set, based on the instant hit rom-com, not only carries a popular and currently relevant name, as well as high-tier waifus, but is also known from the Japanese release to be quite powerful and consistent in the game. It packs a great standby level 1 combo, good early plays, an event and level 1 combo suite reminiscent of Calling Card from Persona 5, and on top of all this, has some of the best level zeros ever printed. However, this set will feature the stamped SPs like the Magia Record TV release, much to the disappointment of collectors everywhere. That said, if you're not in the 1% of players that can afford to shiny hunt, this is going to be a strong and popular set, so keep your eye on it. Next up in July, we have English's newest original title, The 7 Deadly Sins. We have a lot of spoilers for this set which I covered in my mid-spring update already, but to summarize, the set features standby and choice level 1 combos, good early plays, and some awesome finishers. There are some characters that share climax combos for more build flexibility, and others that synergize super well if you run a predefined shell with in-flavor character pairings. So far, the set is shaping up to be unique and well-designed, and I'm very excited to see how players decide to build with it. Also, the set will feature hot-stamped signature SPs. I haven't watched the show, but I certainly wouldn't mind owning a Diane SP or two. Now, going into August, this is where Fate Heaven's Feel Volume 2, after several set delays due to production difficulties, is coming out. While it certainly adds a lot of flavor and a large amount of cards to the already huge pool of Fate, players seem unlikely to adopt some of the new combos and toolkits as they don't really measure up to the stuff that's already out there. However, if you remember, that's what some people said about Konosuba Legend of Crimson before it came out, and now look where we are. Additionally, the set features some tech inclusions and decent events that you could definitely see in the upcoming meta decks for Fate. The set will feature stamped SPs instead of signatures, which again was disappointing to players, especially given the popularity of Fate VAs in the overall franchise. But the set is also sandwiched close together between other releases, so the hype train won't die down for long. On September 10th, Slime Set 2 will drop and add a ton of new and awesome tech to an already strong contender in the meta, and it introduces new toolkits for pretty much every character, all of them being quite strong. In yellow, there's an early play Xion that lets you heal every time she attacks, a new finishing Rimuru that lets you attack several times in a turn by chaining characters, including itself from the waiting room, and finally, a tap self-searching Brainstormer. And in red, Milim gets a new Brainstormer that straight up lets you top check for free if you have her finisher on the stage. Shuna gets a new level 1 combo on a level 1 reverser that lets you do the Bunny Union effect on reverse with a new kind of climax ability. It's a +2 trigger, and on play you salvage a character whose level is equal to or less than your own, and then you give up to 2 characters +1 soul. Pretty friggin' good. But at level 3 in red, we have something truly spicy. Dragon Star Diffusion Explosion Milim heals on play and gets +2k if you're playing a legal deck. So at 11k, she has a climax combo with a standby trigger that gives her the 2 following abilities until the end of turn. First, when she direct attacks, you can pay 2 and deal 2 damage to your opponent. However, if she reverses a battle opponent, you can pay 2 and play an event called Dragon Star Diffusion Explosion from your hand for free as long as you meet the color and level requirements. And Dragon Star Diffusion Explosion is a 3/5 event that has your opponent reveal the top 7 cards of their deck. Then they shuffle their deck and put the top X cards of their deck into their clock, where X was the number of climaxes revealed by this effect. Now normally, this wouldn't be amazing for a 3/5 event. In fact, it would be pretty trash. Even if you could play it for free from your hand with the combo, it's still expensive. Except for one thing. This card is actually missing some very important text that appears on pretty much every other card that deals damage to your opponent. A little reminder in parentheses that says, this damage can be cancelled. Well, guess what? This damage cannot be cancelled. This effect puts those cards directly into your opponent's clock. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. This is the first effect in English Weiss to my knowledge that completely bypasses the normal mechanics of cancelling damage. This just happens. So yeah, this is a thing that's going to happen to you in the near future if you find yourself on the business end of red slime. Now there's also blue, which gives Rimuru yet another clean cut, this time with more power and more levels, and it also gives Shizu a new level 1 combo where on attack you top check 4, and then you can pitch 1 and salvage a new event called Crystal of Wisdom. Crystal of Wisdom has the same printed text as the Scarlet Sword event from Adventure Time, which isn't bad, and level 1 Shizu gets additional power from it being there. And finally, Shizu gets a new finisher that, on attack with her combo, deals 4 damage for free, provided you have 4 or more cards in your memory. But since Slime is pretty good at that, and gets even more cards in this new set that will make it even more of a compression monster, that shouldn't be a problem. I've got a whole case of it pre-ordered with the same buddy of mine who I first wanted to Slime with about a year ago, so look forward to the release both for a strong new take on Slime and some fun opening videos. Now finally, in October, SAO Alicization is getting Volume 2, War of Underworld, and this expansion adds some much-needed tech to the existing Alice suite, like, for example, a tap self-searching Brainstormer, and a few different clock searchers and top checkers. It also gives Alice and Kirito new combos at level 1, adds an Alice that is not only a good Musashi, but has her own combo to ping 1 on attack as well, and another Asuna that has yet another version of the Mill 11 combo, this time on another climax named Mother's Rosario. Man, someone working for Bushiroad really likes that 11-hit combo and the name Mother's Rosario. In addition, the set features gorgeous overframe rares you can pull, though at this point I'm unsure of the ratios. And as an added bonus during the production of this video, Bushiroad dropped a big one on us. One of the 5 sets I talked about in a previous video I made called 5 Sets That Should Come to English made the cut. And you guessed it, Quintessential Quintuplets is coming over. I'm positive that there are a lot of people excited about this. As for the set, it features combos, level 0 support, mid-game, and finishers to support making a waifu deck for each and every quintuplet, ranging from anti-soul to anti-compression. But as the set is universally traded, you can also make the amazing Good Cards deck. The set also features amazing Hyper SPs, which I'm sure will drain wallets everywhere. There's also a detail that the set actually has 5 different trial decks, which Bushiroad has done something a little different for in their English release. They're calling it the Quintessential Set, and it will be sold as an independent product with 381 cards for every trial deck. This means you get a playset of each trial deck if you buy one, including Triple Rs and SRs, of which 25 total will be in every set. The set also contains playsets of each promo card and 1 unique SP per set. This is a pretty interesting move by Bushiroad, I won't lie. On one hand, this is a lot easier on some collectors. However, if you want just a few cards from a trial deck, you'll have to buy them on the secondary market, which honestly shouldn't pose too much of a problem. I know I'm ordering some. Now, this is generally where our clairvoyance ends. Bushiroad has made no other announcements besides the Morphonica and Raise a Sullen Extra Booster and the Morphonica trial deck, which will likely release either November or December. But there are some very big titles and popular sets that are in strong places to either come to English or receive their own English original release, so I'm anxiously anticipating what will come next. But all that taken care of, let's talk about what's been going on in the Weiss Schwarz world this spring. First, I want to talk about Springfest. Now, while there were no in-person regional tournaments, Bushiroad ran a single Springfest tournament in May through Discord. The tournament was hosted for 3 different time zones, North America and Latin America, Europe, and Asia, and each had their own player registry. And for this recap, I'll be talking about the North American Springfest. The process was the players could choose to register through Bushiroad's official website using an online form where they would submit their contact information, Discord tag, and a picture of their deck. Then players were emailed the link to a Discord server and instructions to download a pairing app called Best Coast Pairings. On the day of the tournament, players were to report to the server and verify that they were present, and then they were given pairings and tables in the form of voice channels where players could share their webcams with one another to facilitate play. The cap for registered players was around 130, I believe, though if you look at the registration through the pairing app and Bushiroad's Google Doc of decks, you'll see a lot more decks that were actually registered. This is because there were a significant amount of players that didn't report on time, and since there were open slots, people who registered late, including myself since I was originally going to work during the tournament, were able to compete. Comparing the numbers in the decks that were registered versus the decks that were actually competed, overall the percentages of what decks people used didn't change too much. So here's the breakdown of the actual field, and put an asterisk next to these numbers as I had to do a lot of cross-referencing names, pairings, and deck lists from different sources, and may have miscounted or included decks or players that were no-shows, being that I gathered a lot of this data post-tournament. A large majority of this field was extremely varied, starting at the bottom with decks that had 4 or more showings, and all decks with 3 or less falling into the other category. We had the following: 4 Love Live Sunshine, 6 SAO, 6 Konosuba, 7 Bang Dream, 9 ReZero, 10 Adventure Time, 12 Slime, and 30 decks that fall into the other category. And this is one of the most diverse fields I've seen in a regionals in a long time, until you factor in the 25 Day-Day Live decks, of course. I mean, I know we're all happy that Attack on Titan has finally been relegated to the other category after dominating the meta for 2 years, but at what cost? Jokes aside, this is still a pretty diverse field, and this was also represented in the top 8. While there were 2 Day-Day Live players, the other 6 were unique, with 1 Bofuri, 1 Titan, 1 Sunshine, 1 Bang Dream, 1 Slime, and Junken Pon making a run to 3rd place, asterisk here, with Batman Ninja, proving once again that Weiss Schwarz is a game where anything can win if you're a good player and have a strong handle on your deck. And while the Day-Day Live mirror match is going to be a fact of life for a long time to come, this is still a very interesting and open field for different decks to come and take hold for a very varied metagame. Overall, I thought the tournament was run extremely well for what it was, and the rounds moved along smoothly with any technical problems being dealt with pretty well, and the judges being available to keep things on track. They were even able to stream feature matches and do live real-time announcements, and I hope they host more of these online tournaments in the future now that they have some experience under their belt. However, while most of it went off without a hitch, there was a small controversy that happened in the top 8, though oddly not during the tournament. On June 3rd, several days after the actual tournament, Bushiroad made a Facebook post about the quarterfinals. In short, they said that after reviewing the footage from the game between Austin Wachowski and his opponent, Austin was found to have shuffled in a way that allowed him to see the cards in his deck when obviously you're not supposed to do that. And because improper shuffling in this kind of tournament is grounds for a game loss according to floor rules, Austin's placing was taken away and he was retroactively eliminated from top 8. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and some further context might be in order. First, during the actual game, a judge had previously intervened to advise Austin of proper shuffling procedures during another shuffle, though did not say anything about the shuffle that we can surmise is the one in question. Second, as the game was streamed to Twitch, it's believed that during the stream, the players in chat were pointing out the improper shuffle, which people have speculated influenced the Bushiroad judge's decision to review the footage again. And third, being that this was Weiss Schwarz's first sanctioned Springfest held online, there was already a lot of back and forth happening on whether or not a proper tournament could be held online due to the nature of webcam games and one-sided angles in general, and it was posited that this would make cheating easier and thus diminish the value of the actual tournament. Bushiroad's decision concerning Austin was met with extremely mixed reactions from the community on social media, but mostly outrage and disgust from popular players. Due to the nature of the ruling and the gray area regarding this infraction and the decision to hand out an elimination retroactively, controversy ensued among the player base, and this is now a topic of ongoing discussion. Now, I'm not a pro or even greatly talented Weiss Schwarz player, and I don't purport to be. However, I do have years of experience in TCG tournaments, especially large ones like regionals and Weiss, though moreover Grand Prix and other large events in my years of Magic the Gathering. And for what it's worth, which is probably not much, here's my take. First and foremost, I disagree with the sentiment that some players hold that rulings cannot be changed or made retroactively, especially given the influence of onlookers from the form of stream chat or commenters. I personally played games, mostly Magic, where my opponent cheated in front of my face, and since there was no judge in person to witness it, some of these situations boiled down to a he said, she said. There were other times when I realized post-game that it was probable that my opponent may have cheated, though without video to review, I could never know. Cheating in a TCG tournament is among the scummiest scumbag shit you can do, and if you do this, you deserve to lick the bottom of Coco's litter box until it's clean. So given my own personal experience, I'm a huge fan of open information during tournaments, like deck lists and player profiles, live judging through Discord, and especially recorded games. And there have been plenty of instances across other TCGs where players have been disqualified retroactively from events or even banned from various card games for getting caught cheating on video. If I learned that an opponent of mine had cheated and it was not caught during the tournament, but rather after the fact, I'd be furious if I had no recourse. Now, all that said, there is a world of difference between cheating and unintentionally breaking the rules, though unfortunately, without literally reading a player's mind, the line between these two actions is incredibly thin and blurry, and sometimes this causes players who have only the best intentions but make a slight slip-up, even though they don't benefit from it, to receive a punishment equal to scumbag cheaters. Many people say that this is the case with Austin, who happens to be well-respected and liked in the Weiss Schwarz community, and has a reputation in general for being one of the best guys you could sit down and play against. And because of this, many people say Bushiroad did this because of outside pressure from onlookers to validate the tournament results in the face of criticism regarding the legitimacy of online tournaments, and threw a respected community member under the bus in the process over what was pretty unlikely to be an actual cheat. Now, did Austin look at his deck while shuffling when he wasn't supposed to and gain information that put him at an advantage, thus violating the improper shuffle rule? We will never definitively know. Regardless of a player's reputation or clout, I think we have to look at every case as impartially as possible in the interest of fairness. After all, bias to well-known players, positive or negative, is very real in card game communities, even among judges. However, retroactively eliminating someone is a big deal. And I think to administer that kind of consequence after the fact, you should be able to see a clear and valid reason that at least comes close to the idea of beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm also a big believer in the idea of innocent until proven guilty and against the concept of trial by mob or circumstance. I've also never liked the idea of enforcement of law and policy for enforcement's sake, and the action of throwing the book at someone just because you can has always made me uncomfortable. There's definitely a very real conversation of fairness to be had here regarding handing out game losses and eliminations over small infractions, as if you choose not to do it in some instances for some players, it muddies the waters when you try to enforce it on players who are legitimately cheating. Though on the other side of this, if you bring the hammer down on everyone for the smallest reasons in order to keep things fair, this encourages a toxic behavior called angle shooting. Angle shooting is when, as a player, you attempt to catch little infractions or small instances of procedural error made by your opponent in the hopes of getting them in trouble with judges, or possibly awarded a game loss despite the fact that they clearly have no intention of cheating you. Examples of this can be, oh, my opponent is using sleeves where some of the corners are slightly bent from play and I can make the case to a judge that this constitutes marked cards. Or, my opponent is 5 minutes and 5 seconds late to the table, and since the limit is 5 minutes, I'll make a scene that this should be a game loss. Or, for example, on webcam matches, hey, my opponent has a card out on view of his webcam that's from a completely different set and is clearly not part of his deck. But it's an extra card, so I think he should get a game loss. And another example for all of you old Magic players out there, my opponent has a Platinum Angel in his wallet, so DQ his cheating ass. On a personal level, I think angle shooting is a terrible and unsportsmanlike behavior. It has the very real impact of making the game less enjoyable to most players, and thus has a negative impact on tournaments and the game as a whole. In fact, all the angle shooting that I experienced while playing Magic the Gathering in large tournaments was a huge reason I quit the game. The experience was honestly infuriating every time it happened, and while I can certainly empathize with anyone not wanting to be cheated, a large majority of these instances were situations where that would never be a plausible explanation for my opponent's actions, and I have a clean record for tournament play. So I think discouraging angle shooting is a very important part of running a tournament and keeping your game enjoyable to players. Weiss Schwarz kind of has that idea built into its enforcement, where in the judge's handbook, there's a sentiment of doing what you can to keep the game state intact if at all possible, instead of just handing out a punishment and stopping the game. I think with the advent of online matches, where footage can be recorded and reviewed on a whim instead of relying on word of mouth and limited knowledge of an event that already transpired, we can afford to extend more benefit of the doubt to players who find themselves in situations like the one Austin was in. With recorded matches and streamed games, we can far more easily look to see if behaviors or patterns or have very real connections to gameplay in a way that constitutes breaking of the rules, or if these are simple mistakes without ill intent. And it's not just featured matches. Bushiroad encouraged all players to record their matches during this tournament, and I think that's a great thing. So then, circling back to the point, I think being that we can review all of the footage from this match and matches like it, if we're unable to establish a clear pattern of behavior or connection to gameplay through this action, I think giving Austin a game loss retroactively without more cause was far too much. Now, I did not actually get to review the full footage of this match, and I was not in the chat when it was streamed. I can't say without question that we wouldn't be able to establish a clear connection between this infraction and altered gameplay, or establish a pattern of behaviors like it. But given what I could find and the testimony I've looked over, I don't believe this is the case. And I think in the future, Bushiroad should err on the side of understanding without a very clear and present example or pattern of bad behavior. In conclusion, I think we should afford more understanding in these kinds of situations given the new resources afforded to us by online tournaments. However, I also think there's a valid discussion to be had both ways, and given the opportunity, I would definitely be open to sharing my experiences with things like this with other collaborators, and of course be open to engaging more on the topic, as it's definitely a conversation worth having and important to any card game. And with all of that said and done, this is where I'm going to wrap up the recap for this Springfest. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience personally, and again, I hope they do more of these in the future. Now there's one more topic I want to cover in this update. Typically, I don't talk about Japanese Weiss Schwarz on this channel as I don't play or own any Japanese decks. However, Bushiroad is a Japanese company, and I think there were some things on their 2021 strategy presentation worth covering for their more widespread implications. Primarily, I want to talk about their set announcements. Obviously, these are only in Japanese as of now. First, in a turn of events that literally no one expected, Bushiroad announced that Japanese Weiss would receive a Marvel set. This is likely because Weiss Schwarz is far bigger in Japan, and the Japanese copyright holders were more incentivized to give the rights to Bushiroad. However, we will never, ever see this set in English, and it may be the first time I try to order Japanese product, just to collect it. But far bigger, somehow, than the Marvel announcement, Bushiroad, at the end of their stream in a Marvel-style post-credits reveal, announced that HoloLive would be coming to Weiss Schwarz. They even had VTubers on stage, well, kind of, talking about the announcement. This is a huge deal. I cannot understate the popularity that this product will have and how it could absolutely blow the lid off of Weiss Schwarz sales. From what we know, the set will feature 7 different Trial Deck Pluses, each featuring a set of 4 or 5 different VTubers categorized into Generation 0 through 5 and 1 for HoloLive gamers. And each of these trial decks will feature both a triple rare and an SR, and you can get different triple rares and different SRs for each VTuber featured in the deck. This is a huge pool of extremely popular VTubers, and the trial decks will have a total of 32 signed cards. 32! And as for the set itself, it will have a massive card pool of 144 cards, and get this, 144 fucking parallel rares. You heard me. Fucking RIP collectors. Now, the pre-orders for pretty much every product, including the deck boxes and playmats Bushi made, were gone and closed immediately. So why am I even talking about this? Because I need to say this. Bushiroad has absolutely no excuse not to bring this set to English. HoloLive must come to English. I don't know about HoloLive, and I don't watch VTubers, and I know absolutely nothing about this shit, but for the sake of Weiss Schwarz, free money, and all that is holy, HoloLive must come to English. If Bushiroad were not to bring this set to English, it would be the single biggest business mistake since New Coke or Windows 8. Probably bigger. The amount of free money Bushiroad will be turning their nose up at is larger than the pile burnt by the Joker in that one scene in the Batman films if every single bill in that stack was a C-note. Am I exaggerating? No, I'm fucking not. People love HoloLive, especially in the West. But there's another angle on this whole thing. Because unlike a lot of other popular and huge titles that require a ton of licensing in the West, HoloLive has no independent intellectual property holders in the United States. The entire company is made of subsidiaries of Cover Corp, which of course owns the right to HoloLive EN, and they are a Japanese company only. There's no Aniplex, there's no Funimation, and there's no fucking Crunchyroll. What's more, HoloLive songs are in Bushiroad games, and Cover and Bushiroad already have a huge pre-existing relationship. Hell, Bushiroad even helps produce the big HoloLive concerts. They even have the main billing on their concert website. And you'll find Bushiroad's fingerprints on a lot of HoloLive stuff. It should be a fucking cakewalk to bring this to English compared to something like, say, Marvel, where Bushiroad would have to negotiate with Disney. Not happening. Now, this is all based on my understanding of the current structure of HoloLive IP, which admittedly is not that extensive, but I've spoken with people who are far more familiar with the industry and way deeper into VTuber culture, and the sentiment is unanimous here. It should be nothing for Bushiroad to bring this to English, so I'll just come out and say it. If HoloLive would be released in English, it could bring Weiss Schwarz into a golden age in the West, and bring in thousands, if not tens of thousands of new players. But if Bushiroad does not bring this set to English, it would signal to me that Bushiroad has no interest in the Western market, free money, or English players. If they don't bring HoloLive over, this would be a massive bad sign for English Weiss. And finally, even though I don't watch this stuff and it's not really for me, and I don't know a damn thing about VTubers, I will own a Hosho Marine SP, and you can take that to the bank. And I can finally catch a breather because this spring update is finally over. I know it's a tad late, but I was holding out for a few more things to cover in between now and my mid-spring update, and as it turned out, while there weren't too many independent events, there was a lot more to say than I thought. While we haven't had too many announcements for English, and there were only a few major tournaments, there was still a lot going on in these months leading up into deep summer. All that in mind, there's a lot of upcoming content I'm working on, including videos for Bofuri and Kaguya-sama, new collaborations with other Weiss YouTubers, and a new installment in my How to Get Better at Weiss Schwarz series, so look forward to that in the coming months, and get out there and enjoy the upcoming summer for 2021. I mean, it has to be better than summer 2020, right? And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.